Okay, this video is called Book Review of EMF by Joseph Mercola, written in 2020. It's about EMF means electromagnetic fields. The most common support sources of EMF in your home would be your cell phone, laptop computers, tablet computers, Wi-Fi routers. Wi-Fi routers are especially bad because they're always on. Microwaves are the most powerful EMF in a household, but they're only on briefly. You should run out of the room when the microwave is on. Get about as far away from it as you can. And my advice would be throw the microwave in the garbage can. Get rid of it. Let's see, what else? Bluetooth devices like headphones. Don't be wearing those things. Cordless phones. Get rid of them. Best to have a phone plugged into the wall, the old-fashioned phone. Wireless printers, bad. All this wireless stuff is bad. Wireless microphones. Hair dryers are stupid. You don't need a hair dryer. You don't need shampoo. I mean, maybe if you have special hairstyle, you're a model or something, fine. But a regular person, you don't want that EMF right next to your brain. Focus some of your personality on being smart instead of being conformist and doing what everyone else does. Don't stand by electrical appliances for no reason. Don't stand by the Wi-Fi router for no reason. Avoid stupid electronic stuff like electric blankets. You don't need that. These Echo Alexa things also to me sound stupid. All these smart devices, stupid. You're exposing yourself to extra EMF for no reason, no good reason. If you can avoid having a smart meter, avoid it. They might not let you. There's things you can do to shield it. Try not to live right next to a cell tower or a power line. Don't stand next to the electric circuit breaker in your house. I won't stand next to the refrigerator or the air conditioner if I don't have to, briefly. Dirt electricity, we're not going to get into that. That's a whole other topic. I was interested in all this EMF stuff many, many years ago when I first bought my house and just had kids. I wanted things to be good for the kids. I bought these EMF testers, and I tested all the rooms in the house, all the devices in the house. Then I tested all the different paths that I used to drive to work, and like one power line that I had to drive under had a lot more EMF coming off of it than another one, so I wouldn't go that way to work. And then I also would never drive in an area where I would have to stop underneath a power line, like if there's a traffic jam at the stoplight. I didn't like to drive in the path where there was a whole bunch of cell phone towers all next to each other. For what that's worth, the old-fashioned stuff was more likely to be direct current. Newer stuff like 5G is alternating current. That's called pulse, has a pulsed effect, and that's worse for the human body. That has more negative health consequences. The fifth generation is a new thing, sort of added to whatever else was there before, 2G, 3G, 4G. It has much higher frequency, like I said, and it's pulse. That's all bad. It can actually be blocked by trees and walls. So those are some of the things you can do to shield yourself better from 5G. In animal studies with 5G, it is associated with increased incidence of cataracts. Okay, we're going to talk in a moment how it's associated with increased risk of cognitive impairment. And one of the reasons why I find this all very interesting is many years ago, back in the 1990s, when these cell phones came out, there was a lot of concern. Oh, they're going to increase brain tumors, brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, GBM. People are going to die from brain cancer. You know what? I haven't seen that. I look at brain MRIs every day, and I have not seen a significant increase in brain tumors. Now, they're going to tell you in some study 2 times increased risk of brain cancer compared to before. But I can just tell you, brain cancer tumors are very, very rare. Even if you doubled the rate, tripled the rate, quadrupled the rate, multiplied it 500%, it would still be rare. But what's not being recognized is tons and tons of people are cognitively impaired. You want to know a common disease? Cognitive impairment, okay? And guess what? Most of the patients who I look at a brain MRI or a head CT for cognitive impairment, memory loss, MCI, mild cognitive impairment, they've got cataracts. You see where I'm getting at here? The cell phones are associated with increased risk of cataracts. And there are some people who are writing papers saying that this EMF, is associated with increased risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. So you see they both potentially are related to this. You know, the pitfalls are, of course, confounding variables. It's also the case that all this vascular disease stuff, hypertension, atherosclerosis, diabetes, are both associated with increased incidence of cataracts and increased incidence of dementia. So what percent is due to EMF effects from cell phones and Wi-Fi? And what percent is due to the vascular stuff from high-fat diets, for example, and cooking oils and all this? It's hard to know. So the wise move is just avoid all this stuff as much as you can. Another interesting study by this guy, Alan Frey, in 1975, showed that EMF causes leakage of the blood-brain barrier. Well, that's kind of a scary thought, because when you get a leakage of the blood-brain barrier, then it's more difficult for your neurons to have their surrounding extracellular matrix maintain a precise milieu, precise ion gradients, okay, precise regulation of sodium and potassium and calcium. You're more vulnerable to food toxins getting into your brain parenchyma, and that's a double whammy, because increased EMF exposure is also associated with increased risk of leaky gut. I put the page number in the book right here, page 127, if you want to look up leaky gut, which means that it's associated with autoimmune disease. And you see where this is going? If you simultaneously have leaky gut at the same time that you got leaky blood-brain barrier, that means the toxins that get in through leaky gut have increased chance to get access to the brain parenchyma. Not good. And you're seeing also how things tie together. You know, we had the lectures on the Douglas Kell guy from PhD from United Kingdom, England, and Etheresia Pretorius, the lady from South Africa. They worked together with their papers on leaky gut, dormant bacteria, bacterial endotoxins, LPS, and LTA, and their association with abnormal blood clotting and, you know, leaky blood-brain barrier and access to the brain and increased risk of dementia, including precipitation of the beta amyloid proteins. All right, can you give me 10 minutes? All right. Excuse me there. All right. EMF opens up voltage-gated calcium channels in the brain, in the heart, in the testicles, which means associated with increased risk of lowered testosterone, infertility, in the ovaries, infertility there as well. And I've talked about this before. I see these young guys think they're macho men, and they got their cell phone in their front pocket, microwaving their balls. Not bright. What else? This activation of brain cells, when you increase the calcium, you know, the voltage-gated calcium channels like we see in the synaptic terminals, calcium floods into the cytoplasm, and that starts activating the neuron to release its neurotransmitter, which will then have an excitatory effect on the postsynaptic neuron, you know, glutamate being released across the synapse, for example. This rapid increase in calcium can have so that's an excitotoxin-like effect. So a cell phone has an excitotoxin-like effect. You know, we talk about MSG being that way, psychological stress is that way, GP sprayed on non-organic food is that way. It's not good, okay? And of course, some people will say things like, well, MSG doesn't have that much access to get across the blood-brain barrier. Well, we just talked, people are exposed to Wi-Fi and cell phones all the time. So there's your blood-brain barrier leakage, not to mention high-fat meals, okay? So you can see there's all these converging things causing cognitive decline. And there's actually a real famous researcher in this area. He's a PhD, I think he's from Caltech, named Martin Paul. And he says, we are rapidly having a decline in the total brain power of the human species through all these numerous things, our lousy diets, and all this EMF exposure from cell phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi, etc. It says mankind's becoming stupider, and that does not bode well for mankind. All right, continuing on, when you get an excitotoxic effect, you can generate nitric oxide. Not the good type of nitric oxide we're talking about, like in an endothelial cell to vasodilate your arteries. We're talking about excessive intracellular nitric oxide created by this abnormal excitotoxin effect. And that'll combine with mitochondrial superoxide, and that'll produce peroxynitrite. And so that's kind of a big deal. I made peroxynitrite in purple here, okay? It's different than superoxide. It's different than hydroxyl radical. It has a relatively long half-life, and it does a lot of damage in the mitochondria. Plus, it creates a vicious cycle whereby it feeds back on to increase itself. So a positive feedback cycle amplifying itself, because it'll inhibit superoxide dismutase. That's the mitochondrial enzyme that neutralizes superoxide, okay? So this peroxynitrite is sort of the bad actor to worsen this whole process here and lead to vicious cycles of tissue damage, brain cell damage. All right. So, obviously from this, you don't want to be holding your cell phone to your brain. You want to use a speakerphone. Don't use it so often. Don't sleep with it next to your head. Keep it away from your body. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But this is what you should remember from this. The EMF from cell phones and these other sources of EMF have a tendency to open up VGCC, that's voltage gated calcium channels, letting increase calcium into the cytoplasm of your neurons and other cells of your body. And this can activate a calmodulin enzyme, which can activate your nitric oxide synthase, NOS, increase nitric oxide. That'll combine with superoxide when it's present in significant amounts. And this will make peroxynitrite. And peroxynitrite will self-amplify itself by inhibiting the enzyme used to get rid of this, superoxide. Superoxide just mutates. This has a tendency to damage mitochondria. And then see how things add up. If you've got less superoxide available because you eat a low-fat diet, then you'll have less of this for the nitric oxide to react with. This is why a lot of people are like, well, can't I just fry my food? Can't I just eat a little bit of this junk food? You as an individual can do whatever you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. Because one, stupid dietary habit can have a amplified, vicious cycle feedback to cause all these additional problems. Like if you're iron overloaded, you're more prone to run the Fenton reaction in your mitochondria, where your superoxide can be made into a hydroxyl radical. Okay, so all of these things start pushing in a bad direction. You want to push everything in a good direction. So eat the low-fat diet, minimize your EMF exposure. Okay. Here's a bunch of neurologic effects. A lot of stuff here that goes with excess EMF exposure. Insomnia, headaches, anxiety, depression, tiredness, brain fog, difficulty concentrating, difficulty maintaining attention, kind of the same thing there, decreased memory. Also tinnitus. A lot of people have tinnitus, and in the past I wasn't aware of this being a cause of tinnitus. Now I am. These are the page numbers in the book if you want to look any of those things up. This guy's a big researcher on the subject, Martin Pall. He's kind of boring, but he's smart and he's tenacious, so he really digs deep in the literature. So I think he's done a lot of good, Martin Pall, and I kind of sense about him. He has like zero dramatic flair to make his talks entertaining, but he's like a tenacious guy who keeps on trying to understand more and reading, and he's real smart. So he's good. I've learned a lot from him. Okay, so I got one more slide here. It's almost like Martin Pall. The feeling I get from him is he's a guy trying to do good. And so I admire that. I respect that. Okay, what to watch out for. Kids are more vulnerable. They have, initially when they're real young, they have a weak blood-brain barrier. Stuff can get across it. Later on, they still have thin skulls until they get older and hit puberty and everything. So they're growing fast, which means that they're more vulnerable to having a cell phone and have more penetration of the EMF effect into their brain parenchyma. Try not to have Wi-Fi in your house. Might not be easy. You might have to be around it all day at your job, obviously. You can buy EMF meters to measure the amount of EMF levels around your house, and that can sometimes give you ideas on what to do to make things safer. This is a whole giant topic. I'm not going to go into all this stuff right now, but what I hope to accomplish with this lecture is to make you aware of some of these issues, and you can continue to study it more on your own. This is sort of revitalize my interest in the topic. I'm going to read more about it now. First of all, don't give the kid a cell phone, or hold off on that as long as you can. Like I said, there was a disagreement between my wife and I. When it comes to anything academic or intellectual, I'm pretty much always right. And, she wanted the kids to get a cell phone so she could just drop them off at their friend's house. They can call her whenever she wanted. I'm like, when I was a kid, I never had a cell phone. I just used my friend's house, the phone at their house, to call. The kid could borrow the friend's phone to call. People don't need a cell phone. And my kids, I noticed my daughter's IQ just dropped like 30 points as soon as she was given a cell phone. All she wanted to do was talk to her friends. Before that, she would read books and discuss the books with me. And after she got her cell phone, I became irrelevant. All that mattered was her friends. Let's see. You can put it in airplane mode when it's not in use. It never fully turns off. You can't fully turn it off. So, they want it to be able to track you like a dumb animal you are for owning it. Avoid using cell phone when the signal is weak, because the amount of EMF coming out of it can be increased like 10,000 times. Try not to use it when in the car if possible. Keep it away from your body. Don't put it in your front pocket. You're microwaving your balls or in your ovaries. Don't put it in your back pocket, that might be associated with increased risk of rectal cancer. Don't put it in your chest pocket. That's thought to be associated with increased risk of breast cancer. And it might also be associated in your left chest pocket with increased risk of cardiac arrhythmia. Okay, don't sit with a laptop on your lap. Again, you're microwaving your balls. You don't want to if you have a tablet computer, don't put that too close to your face. When you talk on your cell phone, use a speakerphone. Have the desktop your desktop computer is nice in the sense that it's farther from your face compared to this other stuff. Better to have a wired mouse and a wired keyboard. Wire everything you can. Use wired internet instead of Wi-Fi. Use a wired old cord, plug in the wall phone if you can instead of a cell phone, especially when you're at home. You can try to make your home to the extent it's possible, a relative sanctuary from EMF, especially your bedroom. Should have no electronics in the bedroom. And there's a whole bunch of other things you can do to EMF shield your bedroom. We're not going to get into that. That's a whole big topic. I'm sort of whetting your appetite, if you will, to learn more about this subject. And I'll give Mercola credit. This is a pretty good book. I was surprised how well written the book was. I was surprised at how good the scientific references were. So Mercola, he kind of reminds me of Blaylock a little bit. And there's a lot of people, and the way it works is they give you a lot of good information, but then they try to sell you something. But the information he gave, for the most part, it was good. I'm not interested in buying any of his supplements and all that stuff, but it was pretty good. And he has to be a pretty bright guy. He's obviously a genius of marketing. Blaylock wrote a brilliant book about excitotoxins, even though he tries to recommend all these supplements that I don't want. But so, you learn what you can. There's no perfect world, no perfect source of information. You just do the best you can to find the best available information. And this book's worth reading. I was surprised how good it was. Of course, he's probably got videos. I haven't really started watching his videos yet, but that might be interesting. Okay, what else? Better to have incandescent bulbs than LED or fluorescents. LEDs have too much blue light and can, disrupt your melatonin a little bit so you sleep less. Fluorescents are not only have more blue light, but they also to disrupt your melatonin and decrease sleep, but they also can leak a little bit of mercury potentially. Let's see. Hair dryers are stupid. I'll have to learn more about dirty electricity. They talked about Stelzer filters and what stuff. I don't know exactly how to test those and make sure you're really getting something useful or just wasting your money. I'm going to learn more about this. I thought it was quite interesting. Of course, eating the healthy diet gives you more antioxidants and better tissue oxygenation, so the cells are healthier, better able to heal themselves. So anyways, that was interesting. I hope that was useful for you.